your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Thursday, July 18th. We are here live. It is a free-for-all, but we've only got an hour. Coming up in the next hour will be Mike and Kevin Beckett with Rolling Toe. I don't have a lot to talk about today, so I'm probably going to get to the calls pretty quick, mostly because no matter how much I scroll today, all I can seem to find in the news are multiple conspiracy theories. And they're all growing, and they're all kind of interesting, and you can spend an awful lot of time reading and trying to follow up. And I did a little bit of that, and it gets confusing and hard to follow after a while. And so then I was looking for other news. There's very little. I will say this. The news I'm seeing about trucking, coming out of several sources, FreightWave's written several articles about it. I'm seeing from some other places that there is the feeling and a lot of data right now to say we're probably coming out of the freight recession, which is odd because 2 months ago we thought there's not going to be any change during 2024 at all, and we were looking forward to maybe something happening in 2025. And now within a month or two, that's changed, and there's all kinds of data that says we might be coming out of that freight recession. It just continues to be a very, very difficult time to predict anything in business, money, finance. None of the statistics make the kind of sense they used to. And now with the conspiracy theories all thrown in and Biden getting COVID and who's going to be their nominee, and it's kind of a mess in the media right now. And the media, interestingly, is changing a lot. So I think I mentioned sometime this week, I don't know if it was on the Space or show, or that the way that I get my news has changed just in the last couple of months. I used to use a news aggregator where I could either follow a certain journalist or a certain publication or show, or I could just put in keywords, and I would do all of those things, and then I would scroll through trucking news, business news, financial news, and health news. Those are my 4 categories. And I've been doing that for years. I just scroll the headlines, look for interesting things. I realized this week that I hadn't been in my newsreader for quite some time. Everybody I followed with my newsreader, all the publications, the independent journalists, all the topics, I actually find better information now just on X. I find it faster, better, more accurate. So basically my news search now is just scrolling X, and I have all those same topics and same categories set up, and it's just like I said, it's more efficient, it's faster, and I get better information. That's a big shift. But then Lisa sent me an article last night that I missed, probably because I was tired of looking at news yesterday. Tucker Carlson was just talking about, I have a VIP ticket to an event coming up with Tucker. That's kind of exciting in Salt Lake City. He just signed a deal with ABC, $400 million to do a late night show. Typically, the late night shows are comedians. This is pretty interesting. We'll see what happens with that. The one conspiracy theory that I was talking about this week, there's more news on that. So I talked about the private equity funds and all the shorting that went on with Donald Trump's stock. So when you short a stock, you're betting that it's going down. And there are multiple ways to short. I was saying they were short selling. That's not accurate. I saw the trade. What they did was they bought a put option. It's a little different, but you are still betting that the stock is going down. The difference is when I saw when I saw the first article, all it said was they were short selling 12 million shares. That was a really big deal. The option isn't as big, but I almost hate to say that because shorting 12 million shares, whether you actually short sell the stock or use an option, is still a big deal. There's a lot of money that could be lost. Well, it also turns out that they shorted 34 million shares of Rumble, which is owned by Trump. So that's an awful lot of activity. A couple new things came out. One, there's an article claiming that it was a clerical error. Well, if it was one trade, I could see that, maybe. What a coincidence, though. But when it's two different trades, so you made two different, separate, distinct clerical errors, and just coincidentally, they both have to do with Trump stock, that seems like a real stretch. An independent journalist that I follow made a phone call to the CEO. I think it was real. It seems like it, but you can't tell much about anything being real these days. And the CEO basically just says, I can't talk about it. So and then we could get into all the conspiracy theories about the shooter and the roof, and it just goes on and on and on. And then there's two sets of conspiracy theories going on. The people that believe that it was a setup and the government was involved and they're trying to get rid of Trump. And then the left seems to believe that it was a setup also, but Trump set it up and it was a big publicity stunt. So there's just a lot going on that, some crazy stuff. All right, I do not have a lot today, like I said. It's a good thing the calls are coming in, so we're going to get to those right now. We're going to get started in Florida. Matt, good morning. Uh-oh. Let me check to see if anybody's hearing me. Angie, are you hearing me? Send me a text. Let's see. Okay, so it might be you, Matt. I'm going to put you back in the queue.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. I heard you there. Hold on. Let me go back. Matt?
Heard the beep again.
Oh, there you are. You're there now. I don't know what was going on.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Okay. Alrighty. So I got a few topics, and you mentioned the economy. I don't have any official numbers. It's just a little clip I heard from the Ramsey show. We are officially in stagflation.
Really? Did they give the criteria for how they measure that? Because I've never known how you measure. We only went through it once, and I was young, but I remember it, and I remember high interest rates and no jobs, and
Yep.
But I didn't know if there was an actual measurement.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an official one. I think it's kind of just a made-up term.
Okay.
But the statistics they used, or what they stated, is last month GDP technically dropped.
Okay.
And
for the people listening, just so we can kind of help people understand things. GDP, gross domestic product, what we're measuring is kind of what did the country produce, goods and services. It gives us an indication of how robust the economy is. If we're producing a lot of stuff, that must mean people are buying both products and services, and that's a good thing. So if GDP goes down, that means the economy is slowing down.
Yep. And then, when we have two consecutive quarters or 6 months of down, then we call that a recession.
Right.
And that is a true technical and written, policy or
Yeah,
whatever, however you want to word it.
we've been through this for so long now, and we've been up and down and all over the place. But it seems to me like when we actually hit that officially, the Biden administration tried to claim that that was wrong and that's not the correct way to measure it. But we've been measuring it that way forever.
Well, words don't mean what they used to mean.
Exactly. Yeah, I
in
know.
a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, just redefine the words, and then the problem goes away, right?
Yeah, exactly. So then, yeah, for stagflation, the other half of it is the inflation rate is above normal. So GDP is going down and inflation is above normal. And I don't know what they meant by normal, so they didn't give out numbers. Like I said, it was just a short little clip. It wasn't on I didn't hear the whole show. So that's
interesting.
If that continues, yes, we can start using the word stagflation again.
I've been using it for quite some time, saying it feels like that, and we're seeing a lot of the same effects: the high interest rate, the slowing economy, but then the market isn't reacting that way at all. That's been the weird thing about this, that things that used to correlate don't seem to correlate anymore. Like if the economy is slowing, the stock market should not grow. It just shouldn't. I mean, the stock market is made up of all the companies that are in the economy. And if the economy is growing, then stocks should go up. But if the economy is shrinking, stocks either stay the same or go down. I mean, that's just it makes sense and it's a common thing, but that's not happening anymore. And the real estate market is bizarre. When you look at the statistics, what both of them feel like they have to be on a bubble because it's not like they're even reflecting reality right now.
Well, I'm going to disagree on the real estate side off of things I've heard from, on Ramsey and a couple other places too. Real estate is a supply and demand issue, the pricing in that right now. There is more demand than there is supply.
Which, that's what I mean.
If
that seems
interest
odd.
Rates drop.
That's my point, that is disconnected from reality. When the economy is slowing and interest rates are high, the first place to get hit hard is real estate. That didn't happen. Kind of like the market, but the real estate...
Because there's a shortage of homes.
Why? Build more.
Well, so what I'm hearing is because of how bad contractors and builders got hit after 2008, they are still gun shy to go deeply in debt in building houses.
Well, and
so
here's
still basically, a lot of them are building on cash.
And here's the other thing I could see. They borrowing now their cost will go through the roof, but their costs are already really high to build a house too.
You don't have to tell me.
You're right, because you're building one.
I'm in the middle of it.
Right. So
it's insane.
It is. I know. I've looked at just doing some stuff over at the property, fencing and some other, kind of big projects. But I look at the cost. I think this is just crazy.
So and that thing. So if interest rates did drop, the housing problem actually gets worse.
Correct.
Because the only thing slowing buying houses down is the fact that interest rates are so high.
Right. There are people out there that want to buy.
Demand would increase for homes and supply doesn't increase.
And prices go up. And I don't know how much more they can go up. I mean, I kind of like when I was telling people when truck prices went through the roof, if I had a small fleet, even if I still wanted it, I would sell it, take a vacation, and just buy back now when you can buy those same trucks for about half of what they were going for before. I'm sitting on a bunch of real estate thinking, I'm not using it right now. Maybe I should just sell it. I could always buy something back later. And I'm in a weird situation here in the Gorge. We've got some pretty unique properties, and they're hard to find. So that's kind of what's holding me back. But it almost looks like it would make sense. things are still selling. Throw my land up on the market, sell it, and just buy back later because I feel like we're in a bubble.
Well, look at it this way. Think of through everybody you know, or even, talk to whatever callers. Is there anybody you know that has multiple houses? That any of them are sitting vacant?
No. And what we find here, and real estate can be really local. What we have here is the opposite.
Yep.
You can't even find someplace to rent.
Yep. Exactly. Now, do you remember 2005, 6, 7?
Yeah.
All the stories of people buying their third home?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I told the story because I was doing a lot of active financial planning back then. And I was also a high school wrestling coach. So I was out in the community all the time. And people would come to me for financial advice. But they really weren't looking for my opinion. They were just wanting me to say, yes, that's a good idea. Go do it. And one of the goofiest I saw was people were buying spec homes as an investment. And it was working.
Yeah.
Which is stupid, but and then because it worked for their brother-in-law, they came to me and said, well, I'm going to buy 3 spec homes that I'm going to, put in an order on 3 spec homes because my brother-in-law keeps doing it. And by the time they're finished, he sells them at a profit. So what that means is they're going to a builder saying, here, I want this house built on this lot. And by the time it's done being built, they're able to sell it to somebody else for more than it cost them to build it. That's what was happening back then. Well, that's insane. I mean, that almost never happens, but the market was going up so fast. But what happened, and I kept trying to tell people, at some point, the lights are going to go out and the party's going to be over. And you're going to be holding real estate that you can't afford. And nobody wanted to believe me, and
it happened big time. Yeah,
several people got burnt bad.
Yeah, I mean, I was predicting it with limited knowledge. I was young enough; I wouldn't say I knew a lot, but I thought housing prices and all that, and the way it was going was insane. 2004, 5, 6.
Right.
And I kept saying, there's no way this can keep going on.
Right.
But it did. It just kept going on until it didn't.
Well, so let's think about that.
So I was right.
I've been through, several of these cycles. And just to give you an example, I bought my home in Florida in 94 for $150,000. At the height of the insanity at 2007, we're only talking 13 years. The value was approaching $400,000. That was just insane. The kind of growth that we went through. And Orlando was one of the fastest growing cities at the time. They were just building houses so fast it was crazy. But I've been through these, and the hard part, we always know what's coming. I mean, you just look at it historically. Things go up, things go down, and there's a fairly predictable cycle. The last 2 cycles, the difference seems to be we know they're coming. We get the timing way wrong. Like things keep going longer than we think, and that happened in the 08-09 crash. There was a long buildup to it, but this one's even worse. This one just seems to never end.
Yeah, because technically we had a recession in 01. I mean, me personally, I never really felt it. But again, being younger, the only thing that affected me in 01 is I bought a brand new truck and had been pre-approved for the loan, ordered the truck, all that. By the time the truck was built and I went to go finalize the loan and pick up the truck, they told me no, because things in the trucking industry were bad, but me personally, it hadn't even affected what I was doing yet.
Right.
So just ended up changing banks and doing something different, but all worked out for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, from 01 to 08, from one recession to, a bigger one.
Yeah.
But now I know we've technically had a recession, but we've never really felt the recession since we came out, 9 or 10, whatever the upswing was.
That one was I believe one of the slowest recoveries ever. So that was another thing that changed, kind of the dynamic that we were used to. That was a long, slow climb out of that, but it was a good, steady climb. And in some ways, we could still measure that climb. In the stock market and real estate prices,
Yep.
they never stopped climbing.
Yep. So, another topic, I'll let you pick.
Okay.
You want to talk about the Chevron, some hillbilly from Ohio, or accounting?
Let's see. Two of them are sort of political, but politics have an impact on everything these days. Let's do the accounting first.
Okay. So yeah, you had Cole has called many times, and just this past, it was either Monday or Thursday last week. I don't remember. I'm listening to the recordings, but and he said his problem was, on profit gauges, the numbers aren't coming out right for the month because of the way it's calculated. Well, he was talking about cash accounting. You explained it very well, that there's nothing wrong with the accounting and the programming of profit gauges. It's cash versus accrual.
Which,
and
just so everybody knows, every small business wants to stay with cash accounting. It's easier to do. It's easier to understand. At some point, you kind of get big enough where you're forced into accrual accounting. And at that point, you have an accounting department and, all kinds of people to do it. But small businesses should just deal with cash accounting.
Yeah, and that's mine. And I haven't talked about my numbers in several months. And that is the biggest reason right now is my numbers are all wacky because of my route changing and, operation. Right. And I've taken some time off and a vacation, and everything I do is at least 30 days out on pay.
Right.
So when I work 5 weeks straight and then I take 2 weeks off, my accounting gets really goofy because I have a whole lot of income on the month I didn't work.
Yeah,
and
right.
No, did work.
Yeah, so then you have a big hole, like no money coming in. That's what it looks like.
Yep. So yeah, right now when you look at my June numbers, it shows my gross revenue of $4.40 a mile. Well, I know that's not right.
Right. Yeah.
But it is the miles I put on that month and the amount of revenue that came in, but it's off because it's the work I did and the work I got paid for didn't match within that calendar month.
So here's where this confuses people, and I used to have people, I almost lost accounting clients over this, because here's where they would get really screwy. They would tell me, I didn't get paid for this invoice. They billed somebody, they didn't get paid for it. Maybe we're 60 days out or 90 days out. They haven't gotten paid. And then at the end of the year, they would say to me, well, I get to take a loss for that. And I would say, no, you don't. Well, wait a minute. I did the work and I didn't get paid. I get to take a loss for that. And I would say, no, you don't. And they would say, well, I read all the time about companies taking losses. And I'd say, well, let me try to explain this to you. You don't get to take a loss for this because we never recorded it as income. We only record in cash accounting. You don't record it as income until the money is in your bank or in your control. That's when it becomes income. If they never paid you, it never gets booked. So there's nothing to claim a loss on because we didn't put the income in the first place. And we deducted all of your expenses for doing the run. So and people would just be pissed off. No, I got screwed. I need to get a write-off for this. And I couldn't explain to them. And here's why you hear this with companies that do accrual accounting. If you're doing accrual accounting and you book a load in on December 31st, I don't care if it's 2 minutes before midnight. When you book the load, the income goes in the books as though you've received it. That's what accrual accounting is. So now the year ends, we go into the next year, And we realize, hey, we're not going to get paid for this. It's 90 days old or 120 days old or 6 months old. And the company finally decides, okay, we're not going to collect. We're going to write that off. Well, the reason they can write it off is because they've paid tax on it. We booked it in last year and they've had to pay tax on it already. So now we need to get that back. And that confuses people. They think just because they didn't get paid, they have a deduction. So that's why I used to have to explain cash and accrual accounting, and people still didn't want to get it.
Yep. And it is why accrual accounting does make sense once you get to larger sizes.
Right.
Because it really screws up cash flow if you're not looking at how much you're billing out and spending, and there's reasons for it.
There really is.
But it doesn't affect our market.
Let's think about it. When we work with a vendor, just because this is our business model, we pay cash when we put in an order. We don't want credit. We don't want to wait 30 days to pay our vendors or 60 days or whatever. When we place an order, we just pay for it. So now you look at a bigger company that's on accrual, they have customers like us that just pay on the spot. Well, then they have some customers that wait 30 days. They have other customers that, because of their billing cycle, even though you're on a 30-day, it might take you 59 days to get paid. If you build them 2 days after their payments go out, then it's going to be almost 2 months before you get paid. Then you have the companies that you're always chasing for collections. They might be 3 or 4 months out. So how do you look at your numbers and understand what's going on without also diving into all of your receivables and trying to figure out what's supposed to be coming in? And we're talking about companies that are big enough that they have hundreds or thousands of transactions. So with accrual, you keep it consistent. You just show it as income the minute you bill it. And now we can look at our activity and say, well, yes, this is how much activity we created this month, and this is how much we got paid for it. So it does make sense once you get to a certain size.
Yep. Yeah, and in cash, everything balances out for the end of the year, which is the only time it matters for, tax return issues anyway.
Right.
When I look at my year-end numbers, I think they're even up slightly for what they're probably going to balance out to at the end of the year, or year-to-date numbers, I should say.
Yeah.
That the numbers look way better, or they look, realistic, I should say, because the good news is, if I did go off of that $4.40, my expenses last month were 91 cents a mile. So I profit $3.49 a mile.
Don't get too excited, Matt. Don't be.
I don't haul cheap freight.
Yeah,
so.
That's right. Don't be running out and buying a new G-Wagon or anything.
No, that's not happening.
Oh, good.
So, the Chevron Act.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I just got something real short, but it'll probably put you out on a rant. It's amazing. So I listen to several different podcasts in different categories. One of them's Joel Salatin, Beyond Labels. They're talking about it because of the food FDA side of it.
Huge, yeah.
I listened to a couple of farmers that put on podcasts, and they're talking about it because of the EPA side of it, just like you've talked about in trucking, but also, watershed,
right?
All types of, things that affect farming. And even Mike Rowe was talking about it here the other day on his podcast, and he's just kind of all different businesses, but I don't think people that don't understand what it is realize how big this is.
I've tried
It really comes down to, the agencies that create, I just drew a blank on the word. When it's not a law, it's just regulation. And then when somebody wants to argue that regulation in the court automatically just sided with the government.
Correct.
And all of the responsibility to prove anything was on either the individual or corporation or whatever that's trying to
sue them.
Sue the government.
Exactly. Right.
Or a government agency, not, I mean, I guess it is the government either way, but yeah, so now the proof in a court case, it'll be on the government agency will have to prove why they're passing something, and then
right, they have
probably not explaining all of it, not real well, but
it's difficult to explain.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm working on getting the attorney that I've been talking to about this to come on the show with me, and he's willing to come on. My schedule's been a mess lately, and now I want to get on vacation because I'm burnt out, and so I probably won't get him on until after vacation. But honestly, the longer we wait now, the better the information is going to get. This is a really complicated subject, but I don't think people understand how big it is. I've made the statement that I can't think of any other rule, law, regulation, court case, anything in my lifetime that would change our country more than this. And that's a crazy statement to make. And I even asked the attorney, I said, am I kind of being ridiculous if I make that statement? He said, I don't think so. He said, if things turn out the way they should based on this ruling, and you never know, it will be a monumental change in the way we run this country. And let me try to give an example in trucking, but I hesitate to do that because then people think this is only about trucking. It's not. It's about every industry. It's about our entire country. It's about how our government operates. They were able to, with this ruling from 40 years ago, they were able to circumvent the way our founders set up our government. They found a hack to get around it. Instead of having all three branches weigh in equally on something, which is kind of the way our system is designed, so we have checks and balances, we gave all this power to a branch that really doesn't even exist. It's like we created a fourth branch of government, and our government doesn't work that way. But the example I'm going to use, I'm going to try to make some sense of why, when it occurred, it might have made some sense, except we weren't thinking about the bigger picture. I'll give them credit and say maybe it wasn't intentional, and it made sense. Here's why. And how many times have you heard somebody say in the trucking industry, why don't we have, 1,000 truck drivers working at the FMCSA, right? We're the experts. We're the ones that should be deciding these things about our industry. Why do we let these people at the FMCSA that don't know our industry make the rules? Well, first off, the way this was supposed to work is these agencies are supposed to have experts. That's the point of the agency, because Congress isn't experts on business. Congress is just supposed to be people like you and I that go and serve our term. Normal, everyday people, not experts. We might be experts in something, but that's not how Congress was supposed to work. So now, as rules and industries get more and more complicated, we need people that understand the industry. Well, it's not going to be truck drivers. That's just not who's going to get appointed to the positions that make the decisions. So instead, what you're going to get is maybe the CEO from J.B. Hunt, who ends up going and working at the FMCSA. And who would say he's not an expert? He should be the expert in transportation and the trucking side of it. But the problem is, and I'm not going to say that we don't see a lot of this in trucking, but boy, at the FDA, the USDA, some of the other organizations, this is rampant. The principals in the industry go to work at these agencies, But then all they do is write rules and regulations that benefit all their cronies that still work at those corporations. That's where the problem came in.
Yep.
Yes, you're letting the experts make the decisions, but they're making it in their own self-interest. And they move back and forth from working at these agencies to going back to work in the corporate world and then benefit from the rules they created. So
they're really only supposed to be advisors to
correct.
Congress so that
Right.
then Congress could write a better law. But for the last 40 years, the way this was passed is they made it so Congress could write a half-ass law, and then somebody else could actually manipulate it later.
And
I mean, the agencies could. And
one of the explanations I heard, and it actually made sense, was the problem is these rules and bills are complicated. And if Congress was really doing its job, they would be spending time with these experts who should just advise them, and then they have to understand it and make a decision and vote on it. But they said Congress doesn't do that anymore because they spend all their time just trying to get reelected.
Yep.
And they don't want to do the work. So they've just handed it over to these agencies and said, look, you guys write the rules. We don't care. And they don't vote on them and pass them. They're not laws. They're regulations. And now these things are controlling everything in our entire country, not just trucking at all. In fact, when I look at the record of the industries that I work in and I'm aware of, so it's basically trucking, health, and money, the financial world. Health, food, and money is rampant with horrible stories of how these agencies have destroyed things. When I look at trucking, yeah, the FMCSA is pretty inept. The agencies we deal with haven't done much good in a long time, but I don't see nearly the amount of corruption that I see in the other two industries. One of the best examples that I helped people try to understand without reading a book and getting deep into the law was if you watch the movie Dope Sick, you see what happens with the FDA. The Sackler family worked on getting somebody in the FDA on their side. And they bribed them and gave them jobs and millions of dollars. And then that person leaves the FDA after writing all these rules that benefited the Sacklers. And the next thing you know, they're working for the Sacklers.
Yep. They got one of them high executive jobs.
Yeah.
Or sitting on a board, and they're making a fortune.
Yep.
And probably not doing much.
Maybe doing nothing. Nothing. But that is what this case could put an end to. It could have, and right off the bat, you're just not going to see nearly as many regulations being written, which is a good thing.
Yep.
All right.
That's what I'm getting out of it is slowing it down.
Yeah.
So, well, you're going to be running short on time. So, Hillbilly Elegy.
Yes.
A book by J.D. Vance. For now, I guess I could just recommend everybody. It's on Audible. You can listen to it. It's his life story.
It's a great
You're not going to
story.
learn a whole lot of political stuff, but
No. Well, here's the thing.
Am I impressed with his background and where he is today.
Here's the thing. I read that book in 15 or 16 whenever it came out, and it's been a while.
Yep, 16 it came out.
Yeah, and it wasn't political. It was just a book that I don't remember where I saw it. I read books all the time, so I see stuff on Amazon. I read about books. People make recommendations. I don't remember why I read this book. I think, honestly, I was just scrolling through looking for a book, and the title caught my attention. Hillbilly Elegy? What the hell does that mean? So I read it. I was really impressed. I talked about it on the air way back then. I wish I had the recording still, but I was on Sirius at the time. We weren't recording stuff. I had no idea the guy was going to become a very, very young senator on his first try, and now the vice president.
What's funny is in the very beginning of the book, he's talking about his humble beginnings and all that. I'm not a senator. I'm not, nobody
Right.
special. This,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now he is kind of
yeah,
somebody
it's from 8
special.
years ago, but now he is.
Yeah. Yeah. He is kind of somebody
Yeah.
special now.
And
And last night, did you watch him last night?
no, I
So
tuned in on the radio for a little bit, and whoever was speaking was driving me nuts, so I shut it right
there,
back
there
off.
was
But
there was some tough speakers to get through last night.
yeah,
He's an interesting speaker. He's not a bad speaker at all. He's easy to listen to. He articulates things well. Last night it got a little weird with the pace because he would make a statement and pause, and then the crowd would start chanting something. And then he would wait, and he's kind of got a big goofy smile, and he would stand up there, and they would chant for a while, and then he'd start again, and then he'd pause, and they'd chant, and it kind of screwed up the flow of it. But you could tell he will become a really good speaker because now he's going to be doing it a lot, and you can see that he's got a lot of potential. But here was the interesting thing. So he tells his story. He grew up. He had a really rough childhood. Like his mother was an addict.
Wow.
His father really wasn't involved all that much. His grandmother raised him. There was just a lot of struggles, and then he grew up and to get away from it went into the Marines. But he's obviously extremely intelligent. Came back and went to Ohio State and then actually got into Yale Law and graduated at the top of his class. So he's very impressive coming from nothing. He didn't get into Yale because he was an elite. Yeah, how many people that go to Harvard, Yale, all the elite colleges do it because it's a family tradition and they're going to end up in there. Or now you have the exact opposite with all the DEI policies. Now you have people getting in that wouldn't, but he wasn't a part of that. He just was intelligent enough and worked hard enough that he made it to Yale Law on his own. But last night he tells the story, and his mom was in the audience. And he really talks about the fact that his mom did not raise him. She was an addict, and his grandmother raised him.
Yep.
But in the audience, his mom is now 10 years clean. And he made a big deal about that. He introduced her and said I thought he made a pretty bold statement, too. He talked about she's 10 years clean. And then he said later on, a little bit later in the speech, he said, technically my mom's 10th year anniversary is going to be in January of 2025. And he said, and I thought this was a pretty bold statement to make for him. He said, as long as it's okay with President Trump, I think we should have the celebration at the White House. But he made a big deal. He said, Mom, I love you. And just the fact that he's not trying to hide any of that. He's really upfront and honest about, his story and what he's been through. And I thought he did a great job. And then the other thing that shocks people, and I don't know why it shocks them, his wife is Indian.
Yep.
Here's the other funny coincidence. Up until just the last couple of years, had you ever really known of anybody with the name Vivek?
No.
When Vivek Ramaswamy first hit the scene, I mispronounced his name, and so did everybody else. I thought it was Vivek.
Yep.
And then they made a point to say, no, it's Vivek, like it rhymes with cake. So obviously it's not a real common name. For us here, we had never even really heard it before. J.D. Vance has a son named Vivek.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that seems kind of an odd. Well,
you hear
it's not odd because his wife is Indian, and it's
Tuesday?
probably a common
was.
name in India. But it still seems weird that it all comes together in a presidential election like this. Yeah, I think the one you're referring to. I think I posted it. It was powerful.
Yeah, we talking about unity, and no matter your skin color or where you were born or how hard your name is to pronounce, or how long your last name is.
Right. Yeah. No, it was it was powerful.
I got a good laugh.
It was kind of who he's actually, I think, copied some style from, and this will
Reagan.
A little bit of Reagan. The words sound a lot like Reagan. His speech, his delivery, and everything he does on stage. And this will just probably.
Oh,
He reminds me a lot of
Obama.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
I think he's probably studied Obama and has copied some of those things because Obama is really good at that. He really is.
Yep.
Obama is dynamic on stage. People don't see it because they might not like what he's saying, but if you watch his style, it's how he got elected twice. When I first heard he was in the race, I thought this guy doesn't have a chance. But so you see that style, but the words he's saying are very Reagan-esque.
Yep. Yeah, he's Reagan, I guess, messages, but yeah, the
Right.
speaking style and even his hands
Yeah.
and his delivery on stage is a lot like Obama. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, J.D. Vance, I'd heard the name, but I couldn't tell you who he was before Monday. And I downloaded the book on Monday and, listened to it between Monday and Tuesday, and
it's great.
Very good book.
I really
and
enjoyed it.
There is a movie.
Yeah,
I haven't
right.
seen that.
But. Netflix, I think. And I've seen the movie too. And honestly, the movie's not bad. Typically, if I've read the book, I don't even want to see the movie. But this one wasn't bad. If you absolutely don't want to read or listen to the book, then go watch the movie. You'll get the general idea. Hey, Matt, I do have to cut you loose because
Yep.
we got a bunch of calls all of a sudden. So let's go to Pennsylvania. Zena, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm hoping you can help me. I'm kind of stuck in a bad trend right now. In the past year, I gained 10 pounds, and I'm going through menopause. I don't know if that's the cause, or I've struggled in the past. I've gotten bad thyroid numbers, and I have, some of the little symptoms like cold and dry skin. My diet is really good. It's paleo with some dairy. Everything I eat is local or is grown by me.
Okay.
In fact, I actually even started growing mushrooms this year, which was kind of exciting.
Oh, excellent. So let's jump right to because I know where we're going on this. I've dealt with it a bunch of times. I'm good on your diet, so I don't think there's any real improvements we're going to make there that will change anything. Tell me about your lifestyle. What are your days like?
I made a major career change mid last year. I went from being CFO of an organization to working from home for a firm out of Rochester that actually does kind of like the full accounting package. It's like an outsourced accounting, so I'm kind of like a CFO for hire.
Okay, do you
I can work
pretty much kids at home?
What? Yes, I don't have any kids.
Okay.
So it's I can work my own schedule. If I get stressed out, I just go out to my greenhouse or something like that. It's a high pressure job, but I believe it's a lot less stress.
Okay, so one of the things, and we want to test a couple things here, and yes, it is triggered by menopause, and that's affecting it. And the reason is weight loss and weight gain is 100% hormones. It's not calories like we thought. It's not, burn more calories than you take in and you'll lose weight. That works on a very short-term basis, and sometimes that doesn't work at all. And this might be the case where if you were trying to cut calories, you'd really be frustrated. It comes down to hormones. And the proof of that now, not that we needed any more proof, we've known this for quite some time now. The mainstream still won't admit this or doesn't understand it, but all the weight loss drugs, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic, they all affect hormones. That is how they work, where they finally figured out, at least with the drugs, that it is all about hormones. So when women go through menopause, their hormones can do all kinds of crazy things, and weight loss becomes one of the things that's a challenge, and weight gain tends to happen. Then we have what I think is the biggest factor, which is stress. And I think our world has gotten more stressful. We also have the toxic load we're dealing with, and I'm doing more research on that. One of the things I would encourage people to try, and here's what I'm going to tell you. We don't have a whole lot of success fixing this. I wish I did.
Yeah.
I've spent 3 years now studying stress and ways to relieve stress and hormones, and some things work, but boy, you got to put an awful lot of effort into them, and you don't get the kind of results you're hoping you would get. One of the things I just
Mhm.
experimented with recently, and for me, it shows up more as a sleep issue instead of weight gain, but it's all the same
Mhm.
factors. It's hormones, it's stress. Um, if you can take an extended amount of time off, I mean more than a weekend, maybe an entire week or
Mhm.
10 days, and you turn off all the devices, you try to sleep by the sun instead of, artificial light. Try not to use, if it gets dark, go to bed. When it gets light, wake up, go out and get in the sunshine. Spend as much time as you can outside. Lots of sun
Mhm.
exposure, grounding, working in the garden, getting dirty, sweating, really exerting, going back to the way that it used to be much more common to live. And
Yeah.
you may find that you notice a change even in a week or 10 days. And if that's the case, and it usually is, and I experienced this, my sleep cycle shifted the way I wanted it to. My sleep started to get better. The minute and that was over the long 4th of July weekend. I took off on
Mhm.
Wednesday early, I think, and then really just worked outside almost the entire, slept in a tent because it was just beautiful weather and it was great to sleep in the tent. And I could feel the change in about 5 days. And I was absolutely heading in
Mhm.
the right direction. The minute I'm back to doing what I'm doing now, and my schedule is full all the time now, I had a horrible night's sleep again last night. So try that. But here's the problem. That's the only answer I've found. Well, what are we going to do? I'll
Uh,
quit work and go, hang out on the farm all day. I wish I could. I'd love to. So I'm trying to figure out that at least helps us identify where the problem is. And I do believe that's it.
Mhm.
I believe it's our lifestyle.
Okay.
Our lifestyle gets worse and worse all the time. And there's so many issues, it's hard to try to get them across to everybody. We have new chemicals hitting the market every day. I see people now, there's a new category of personal care products, whole body deodorant. We've been pushing people to stop putting these toxic deodorants under your armpits. It's a bad thing to do. Now we have people putting them all over their body. They have like lotions that people are putting over their entire body for deodorant. That
Wow.
continues to change how toxic our environment becomes. I don't have to worry about your food, but people eating, processed food, that food keeps getting worse and worse. Um, Light. We used to use, incandescent light bulbs that were pretty darn yellow. We didn't even realize it until you started seeing all these crazy bright white, blue lights. Now they're everywhere. Those are horribly
Right.
disruptive to our cycles, and those are cycles of hormones. So
Mhm.
I think the problem is our modern world. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Okay. Okay. No, I appreciate that. I can definitely try doing that. I guess in the meantime, I do make sure I take breaks and get up and walk, and I always go to my garden at lunchtime, and that definitely helps for sure.
The more you can do it, the better it will be. I just found that even when, I tried to get it in a couple hours each day and then spend all weekend doing that kind of stuff, it helped a little. But when I went just full
Mhm.
blown, just turn the phones off. I'd never turn on a computer for those 5 days or the weekend when I'm out there. No devices, no
Mhm.
screens. Try to go to sleep when it gets dark. Not use a lot of artificial light. Be outside. I could see the change start to happen. And I'm really
Okay.
convinced that that is what most of us are fighting about. Now, one of the other things, I just mentioned this the other day, that I'm going to do, I do know I've been exposed to mold, and not just once. I've tested this before. I've been exposed again somewhere.
Uh,
I am going to do a really intensive detox. Not. It's not even one of our detox protocols. I've been talking to Dr. Wolfson. They have a really extensive detox protocol because both him and his wife really believe that the toxins and the mold and all these other things are a bigger problem than what most people think. This is a 5-phase detox, and you start the 5th phase in the 8th month. That's how intensive this is. But
Wow.
I'm going to try it. And because my hope is that the toxic load is a bigger problem than what I believe it is. I think it's mostly our lifestyle and our stress. But I'm willing to try this because now that I've identified that it's our lifestyle and our stress, I can't come up with any good solutions. So I'm kind of stuck. I think this is a big part of the problem, but I don't know how to fix it for most people. The only way I know how to fix it for myself is I'd have to retire right now.
Right.
I'm just not ready to do that. So if I find out that, hey, wait a minute, maybe this toxic load is a bigger part of it, I do believe the stress is still an issue. But at least on the toxic load, there are lots of ways we can improve those things.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Zena, I got to cut you loose. I got to cram in some calls here. I started today thinking I'm not going to have any calls, and I don't have any ideas, and now I'm flooded with calls. So, Mark, what can I help you with today?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I've been, about 6 years ago, I discovered you on Sirius XM, and I changed my diet, got off all my meds, high blood pressure,
Congratulations.
ulcerative colitis, acid reflux, and the most amazing one was my hay fever.
Yeah.
Since I was a kid, I had debilitating hay fever. I mean, I grew up on a farm, so putting up hay in the summer was torture. And then in my adult life, I started taking shots a couple of times a year, and that kept it at bay. But since I changed my diet, man, that is gone.
Excellent.
And every once in a while, if I start to feel a little something, I'll take some Histoplex or something, but it's gone. So anyway, off my blood pressure meds, passed my DOT physical last year just fine. Well, about 3 months ago, I got an infection on my leg, so I went to Prompt Med to get around antibiotics to knock it out, and my blood pressure was like 200 over something.
Whoa.
And that doctor, she was like, I'm more concerned about your blood pressure than I am that infection. And I said, well, it must be because of that, because I've been good. Well, then about a month and a half later, I took a bad fall to my ribs so hard that it knocked my wind out of me, and it was high then. So now I've been watching it since then, and it's been like 170s over 90s, 190 over 100s.
Okay, a couple things.
It's just been crazy high.
Okay, couple things are going on here, and I got to cut through this quick. So a couple things. We can do this again next week on Wednesday and get more in depth. You could do a coaching call. There are several factors that went on here. The stress itself of those infections and pain and all the other things will raise your blood pressure temporarily. Yours seems to be hanging around a little bit. The antibiotics can mess with your gut bacteria and cause this, and I think that's what's happening. So
it did, but that was 3 months ago, and that's pretty much gone.
No, it's not. Once you mess with your gut bacteria, you have to work to rebuild it. I've seen people struggle with this for years, and then we fix their gut bacteria, and it finally goes away. You can fix your gut bacteria really quick, but you're not doing anything specifically to fix it. It's not going to fix itself.
Well, I drink kombucha, and I ferment my own stuff.
It might
so
help.
I do,
So, and like I say, this is where we're really going to need to maybe spend more time on this. Are you using Cardio Miracle?
Yes.
Okay. Then that's even more important that we need to talk about it because we got to dig deeper to find it. So this is not going to necessarily be an easy one. We may have to work at this one.
I guess my question is, do you think I should go to the doctor and get on something for now to get it down until we can figure it out?
Yes, I do. Now let me make another recommendation. You could work with somebody like a Dr. Wolfson, and by the time you get in to see a regular doctor, they prescribe something, you start taking it, you could already be working on the problem. But the answer to you having high blood pressure and should you do something about it right away is yes, because high blood pressure is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point where I'm kind of lightheaded sometimes.
Yeah, so
You know.
I would decide either start working immediately with somebody like Dr. Wolfson who could, and I'm even going to say this, don't, if you want to work with me through the coaching program, then go to a doctor and get on something for now. If you go to work with Dr. Wolfson, then he can immediately assess you and decide if you need to be on something now or not. I can't do that. Let's go to Indiana. Jeff, what do you got?
Yeah, real quick on the Cardio Miracle. Now, when they changed the scoop size because they changed the formula, does it mean it's just more concentrated?
So,
Because I went back to
hold
the
on.
old
Let me
scoop
just
at
stop.
14 point.
Yeah, let me just stop you. They didn't change the scoop size because of dose. They changed it to make it easier to put it into a water bottle. That was the only reason they went to that small scoop, because so many people requested. They like to mix theirs right into a water bottle, and instead of getting a funnel, they wanted a
Okay.
smaller. That's all it was. So I still use the old big scoop. And here's the thing about dosage anyway. For the most part, I tell people mix it so that you like the taste of it. So you might be
And the taste for me wasn't an issue.
well, for a lot of people it is. So well, I'm not too
Right.
concerned about the dosage. I don't care if you get it right. I don't care if you're taking more than you should or a little less than you should. I'm not going to get too crazy about that. For me, I use a 40-ounce, insulated tumbler, and I put in roughly what works out to maybe a scoop and a half, a scoop and 3/4. I'm not that crazy about measuring it. I know if I'm getting more than one scoop of this a day, it's going to help me. If I'm getting closer to 2 scoops, that's probably, the serving size for the day. So I say make sure you're getting at least a scoop a day, shoot for 2, and then just mix it the way it tastes good to you.
Because I just put it in the morning in a 16-ounce or 20-ounce glass jar, but I'm going back to the old scoop. So I just didn't want to double up on the serving size and not get any benefit and waste product.
The serving size didn't change. The scoop was changed for a different reason. So, yeah, we went over a lot of that yesterday because I wasn't positive about that either. All right, it is time. So I am going to we're going to do something different today. Mike and Kevin, good morning, guys.
Hiya.
We're what do you say? I have 2 calls left because I wasn't watching the clock. Today was one of those days where I had nothing to talk about this morning. Nothing at all. I thought if I don't get a call, I'm going to be like reciting the national anthem or something because I don't know what else I'm going to do today. Luckily, I had calls. Then I got way too many calls. Now I'm behind. So we're going to tag team these calls.
Okay. Have a good time.
Mike, you'll have a comment.
Of course.
Of course you will.
May not be completely relevant, but there will be commentary.
Exactly.
It's almost guaranteed to be inappropriate.
There we go. I could use a little of that today. So let's just jump in and knock these out. Darren in Reno, welcome.
Right. Hello, Kevin. I called yesterday, but I lost connection. I was on the health call there with amyloid plaque, if you remember.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, but I'll save that for another day. First, I have a quick question. Remember, I'm going to be getting a truck soon, hopefully with your help. I did sign up with the CMC. I signed up last night, so I'm all registered there.
Thank you.
Should a owner-operator, is it good to have 2 phones, a personal phone and a work phone, or do you think one's just fine?
I hate the idea of 2 phones. I know for some people it might make sense to them, but I have never owned 2 phones, and I've owned lots of businesses, and 1 phone is too many for me. I'd rather not have the one I have. So for me, I would say no. There is also a way, and I don't have the link right now, and I don't remember the name of the company, but there is a way to actually add a second line to the phone you already have.
Okay.
So you might want to look into something like that. One of the times this comes up is I tell people if you're using load boards, you just shouldn't be searching the load board. You should be posting your truck looking for loads. And then people say, oh, but every time I do that, the brokers just blow up my phone and I'm tired of it. And I said, well, I used to say, get a burner phone. And then somebody told me about this company where you could just add a second line. Hey, since I'm kind of rushing you today, hey, Mike and Kevin.
I want to comment on the second
Mike,
line.
Go ahead.
I have two lines on my phone. I have the tech line and I have my personal line. The tech line is on a stationary phone in the office, and it is forwarded to my cell phone.
Ah.
Oh, okay.
Great idea.
So
it's another,
if you have a stationary location that you could have a phone at, you can just forward it to your cell phone and you get both lines.
Well, you're telling me that there are phones that are just traveling through the ground?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes, and over wires attached to poles.
Sometimes you can look outside and see wires with poles on them, and people are talking across those wires.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What?
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, you disappointed me. That was a totally appropriate comment.
I'll make up for it later.
Okay, good. Darren, it's your lucky day today. Since I'm rushing you, hold on. I'm going to make you an offer. Don't run off here. I'm going to make you an offer. Since I'm rushing you today because it was rude of me to run late again. I'm going to give you an offer to join me on our coaching call at noon today at no cost. So I can help you with this.
Well, that's one of another quick question I was going to have. I was planning on getting the coaching too, but I first wanted to confirm. A lot of times I may not be available at that time.
We record it all.
Recorded that I can hear.
We record it all, and you can even submit a question ahead of time and say, "Here's my question, but I'm not going to be there today. Can you answer it anyway?" And I will, and then you can go back to the recording. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you back in the queue. Angie's going to pick you up, and we'll give you a free day today, and then you can decide to join the coaching if you want. One more real quick, Mike, so you might be able to redeem yourself here.
Okay.
Jim in Tennessee, what do you got?
Hey, Kevin. Hey, thanks for taking my call. Sorry, I'll just be real quick on this. Right. Do I need to be an S corp?
Maybe. How's that for an answer?
Okay. That's perfect. I got an appointment with my tax lady, and she says, I get more tax benefits and this and that. And I thought I heard you say on one show, every owner-operator should be
an S
corp.
Let me clarify.
But I don't want to put words in your mouth.
You kind of did, but not. So here's the thing. We've been dealing with this for 2 decades. And there are times where I absolutely recommend that an owner-operator move from being a sole proprietor to an S corp. It is totally based on net revenue after all expenses. The number we used to put on it was, and I don't want to go into all the math right now, so you're just going to have to trust me that the math makes sense, was somewhere around 65 or 70,000. If you were consistently netting that year after year, then yes, you should be an S corp. What's happening now is almost everybody with a truck is netting that these days with inflation and rates and everything that's happened. So I made the statement, I need to really go back and look at this, and it's very possible that almost everybody with a truck should be an S corp now. But I haven't really verified those numbers yet. But if you have an accountant who is looking at your tax return and recommending it, I'm going to say right now, I would trust her in that she's looking at the correct numbers.
Okay. Man, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate you. Y'all have a good day.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Now we need calls about tires.
I'm gonna blow it here.
Go ahead.
Can I blow it?
You can.
He's going to blow it.
Anybody who owns a business should be an S corp, at least, for the liability protection a corporation gives you.
Oh, Mike, you do not know what you have done. You were not kidding. This is a pet peeve of mine. This is a big one too. I'm gonna try to be nice, and
go ahead.
Sometimes I get a little over the top on things. No, here's the thing, and I've explained this for years. the whole liability protection just doesn't make any sense in the real world. It does when you look at regulations and laws and things like that. In the real world, here's the problem. Here's the first problem. The people I deal with anyway, if you don't have at least $1 million in clear net worth that an attorney can attach, they're not coming after you. They're just not. They're going after, in our world, they're going after your insurance company first. They have lots of money. If you are leased to a carrier, which is pretty common, we deal with a lot of people who are leased to a carrier, they're going after the carrier. Carrier has all the liability insurance. They've actually said we are the ones that are liable. They carry the liability insurance to prove it. If I'm an owner-operator and I'd lease to a carrier, I don't even have liability insurance. So that assumes that it is the carrier that's accepting all the responsibility. So first off, if you're leased to a carrier, you just don't need it. Second off, if you don't have about $1 million, and if that $1 million includes your retirement account and a home, they can't attach either one of those. So you've got to have quite a bit of that. And then here's the big one. Even if all of those things exist, you're not leased to a carrier, you're on your own. You do have $1 million in free assets. It is not a slam dunk that you can't be sued personally. In fact, you will absolutely be sued personally if you were the one driving the truck at the time it happened.
Very true.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
But
So
what
now,
about the other half of?
Now we know why we've never even seen a courtroom after over 30 years of alignment business, selling equipment, and everything else. It's because we're poor.
That's what I tell people.
Nobody's
all the
tried
time,
to sue us either.
Right? Yeah. If anybody, was going to get sued over the years, it probably would have been me. But, they look at my bank account and go, why bother?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the other half of it? I did the S Corp to save on Social Security taxes.
Absolutely. Now we're talking. That's what I was just explaining to this last caller. That is, in my opinion, the only reason for small companies to be S Corps. Because, you know this, it increases your cost. Most people are not going to do their own S Corp accounting and tax returns. So now you got to pay somebody to do your payroll and accounting and tax returns. And so your cost goes up, your complication goes up. There has to be an offset there. I need to save some money here because I don't need the liability protection. The savings comes in where you just talked about. As a business owner, an S Corp owner, you are required to take a salary, and that salary needs to be reasonable for the amount of work you do in the company. That's the IRS's rule. Now, the word reasonable gives us a lot of leeway on this. And our goal, if we have an S Corp, our goal is to make our salary as small as we think we can get away with. Because on the salary, you have to pay all the taxes.
We used entry level salary for somebody starting doing alignments.
Exactly. And that is the strategy. That's the way. Now here's another good example of how you can kind of push this to what some people might think is an extreme. When I owned my trucks and they were leased to FedEx, they threw off, depending on where I was in my buy cycle on trucks, they threw off between about $80,000 and $110,000 a year in clear profit. In reality, there were weeks I didn't put in 5 minutes. That business ran itself. My drivers had been with me for years. They were on dedicated runs. FedEx dispatches everybody and makes sure everybody is where they're supposed to be. I had a shop that I could tell my drivers, if something's broke, take it to the shop. They'll fix it and send me a bill. So I just didn't do much work. Maybe, 10 minutes a week on payroll. And sometimes I might go a whole month and not really do much of anything. I took a salary of $9,000 on $110,000 in profit. But I could justify that. It says you take a salary based on the work you do for the company, and I didn't do much.
Yep.
But that is the big advantage. There's a lot of savings there too.
Oh yeah, big savings.
Yeah. So you did redeem yourself.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So now we just need to get some calls about big black rubber round things.
Yeah.
Oh, if you
tires,
insist.
Yeah.
Some vibrations, not most of them.
Oh, we got one coming in. Look at
All
that.
right.
Look at, so I can get out of your way and let you guys get to work today.
And you have a great weekend.
You too.
Yes,
Thanks for
yes.
everything, as always.
You betcha, buddy.
And thank you to you. All right. So I guess this is the beginning of then the Rolling Toe Show,
How can it be the beginning when we're 15 minutes in?
because all that's going to go on Trucking Business and Beyond.
Oh,
Which
okay.
is just great. We get included in Trucking Business and Beyond for just a little bit. We unfortunately were unable to dispense our alignment-related